All right, so here we go. I am going to really start, I guess, a vlog. Is that what they call these things now? I think I meant to start one like a year ago, but I didn't. I said, probably everybody's doing this. So it's 2021. We're dealing with the COVID-19 virus. And so I want to start off this video by kind of explaining how it all began for us. Now this video, in case anybody stumbles in here and wonders what the heck's going on, really I'm kind of making these for my family, myself to look back on. Maybe future people can look back on this, I don't know, and see what people were kind of feeling at the time. So that's my plan here. So I want to be honest and open with this and try to report it back as best that I could remember it. And I'm able to sort of do that because, I did put one video up that I actually made at the time back in 2020. But I have a lot of stuff that I did write down last year. So I'm kind of referring to that, my notes that I wrote down over the last year. And that's basically what this is. So this isn't really a deal where I'm trying to make it big or get a bunch of views or anything like that. So just to let you know in case you stumbled in here. And for my children, I love you all, and I hope that you're in good health and good spirits right now if you are watching this. Anyway, so my name is Micah, and I'm going to tell you where this all kind of began for us. For us as a family, we were in Utah, St. George, Utah, on vacation in a VRBO, a vacation rental home. Had a good time there. I was working as a ESL teacher, teaching English to kids in China, and so I had an interest in China at the time. And I remember for me where it really began is I started hearing about this new virus that was found in China. I didn't really think much of it because China is a very big place, and things happen all over. I thought, well, it probably isn't that big of a thing. They'll get it under control, and maybe it's some type of anti-Chinese propaganda. I don't know. I didn't think much about it, but anyway, Chinese New Year rolls around, and everybody's real excited, to celebrate the Chinese New Year, which of course is an enormous holiday in China. And here I am, getting on to the video call essentially to talk to these people and wish them a happy New Year. And there was nothing happy about it. Yeah, it was the year of the rat. I look back and find that a little ironic, but the year of the rat. And everybody was upset. They were, normally all you can hear is fireworks, and it's just crazy. You can't even hear the person you're talking to. It's just like, it's amazing how they go all out. But this year it was not like that. They were crying. They were very, very visibly upset. They were describing basically horror. They were being forced to stay in their homes. They weren't allowed to go anywhere, or basically weren't allowed to celebrate at all. It was not a good experience for them. I don't know a whole lot about the specifics about how they were treated at that time. This is in kind of latest January, around January 20th. I do know that, in China, of course, they live in high rises, and it's much easier for the government to control, whether or not they can even leave their homes. So they basically shut down China, which was profound, and it just it was something that just really shocked me. It was something I couldn't really tell everybody because it wasn't, trending a whole lot in the USA. A lot of people in the USA did not know about it at the time. I know in hindsight people will probably say they did, but people weren't talking about it. People were not talking about it. I was knowledgeable and talking about it because of my relationship with people in China. But anyway, what really teed me off that something was really wrong, even after seeing my friends and people I knew be so upset, what really teed me off that something was really wrong here was I started watching a TV show on Netflix with my wife. She had me watch it just by coincidence at the same time, called The Next Pandemic. And there were literally describing how a SARS-like virus could start in a wet market in China and spread throughout the entire globe very, very quickly and cause basically a global pandemic, and how we wouldn't be prepared for it, and it could potentially cause a lot of death and other things, actually, that it would be pretty horrific if that were to happen. And I just started to put two and two together and started to realize, like, wait a minute, that's what's going on in China. So this is what was going on there. Now at the time, and I try to say this honestly as it was, as I remember it, and not using the 20/20 vision of hindsight. At the time, the theory was that it had come from a wet market in a town called Wuhan, and I even knew some people in Wuhan. One of them was very visibly quite ill, actually, I remember. I don't know if he actually had coronavirus. I never actually talked to him again after that, so I don't know what happened to him. Not so funny. I mean, honestly, I don't know. But I remember talking to him, and he was very sweaty and coughing and having a very difficult time, telling me about things that were going on. And he didn't tell me a whole lot. He just told me that they couldn't leave his house and that, they weren't celebrating anything, and that was basically it. I didn't get a lot of specifics on why at that time, but yeah, supposedly it started in Wuhan and kind of spread throughout China, and they shut the whole country down. There were a lot of rumors. There was a doctor, and I wish I could think of his name. He deserves some credit here. I'm going to look that up just to get that. But this doctor was a young doctor, around 28 years old, and he was kind of the first whistleblower, I suppose. Yeah, I try to find his name. I probably wouldn't be able to pronounce it even if I found the darn thing, right? But anyway, Li Wenliang, I think, and he had actually was kind of the first to blow the thing. He had told some students at a university to be careful and kind of told them about this, and that was sort of the early warning in China in a way. And he was basically arrested, beaten, things like that. He ended up dying supposedly of COVID shortly after, but this man is someone who should be remembered, and I don't know what really happened to him, but he's no longer with us apparently. And you could probably look that up. He's kind of somewhat of a cult hero now. Again, that's some hindsight stuff, but yeah, it all started there. We actually called it in the early days the Wuhan virus. That was the original name was the Wuhan virus. Then later we started calling it coronavirus. Still, no one was really worried for a while in the United States. I was pretty panicked. I was pretty freaked out because I saw what happened to China. I'd been telling my wife what was going on, and it took her a little while, I would say maybe a week or so, to really kind of register that, hey, this guy's, there's something really is going on over there, and he's not just, being outrageous or whatever. So she started to kind of, keen in on what I was talking about. Everyone in China was wearing masks, they were wearing glasses if they had to go out. They believed that they could transmit through the air, that by touch, that it would stay on surfaces for a long time. They were using alcohol to basically sanitize anything that came in and out of the house. I mean, mostly things that came in. But yeah, I mean, taking their clothes off, sanitizing them, making sure they wear goggles. They believed that it could, transmit through through your eyes, through the liquid membrane or whatever of your eyeballs. They were even reports that it would transmit through the water, through the toilet sewer systems of these apartments. It was a highly transmissible infection, whatever it was, and it made people very sick. They built a hospital there in Wuhan that could house, I think, like 1,000 patients in just a matter of days. They really had aggressive efforts. There were a lot of rumors that couldn't be substantiated that many people died, and they actually had like mobile incinerators that were basically cremating the bodies. That could and so there were some people saying that a lot of cell phones went out and that they could actually track that a lot of people in China died. I don't really know that for sure. I couldn't never really confirm that. And a lot of times, I feel I don't really ask my friends in China a lot of questions that they might feel uncomfortable about answering because of the way the government is with their, kind of controlling authoritarian type place or whatever. And so, I didn't want to push the boundaries as far as asking them questions that could possibly put them in jeopardy like that. So I simply didn't. I'm try to make this quick, so that I don't go on and on. But I do want to get this story out there. I was pretty panicked. I actually canceled a vacation that I had lined up to go to Atlanta for a big conference that was going to be a whole lot of fun. I didn't tell anybody why I canceled it. I just canceled it and was like, told everyone I couldn't make it or something, because I was actually embarrassed at the time, and I thought, man, if I told everybody that I'm over here freaking out and panicking over this virus, people are gonna think I'm a nut job. Some of them still would, to this day. But yeah, I did. I prepared. I started stockpiling certain things, to be prepared. Just started getting ready. There were people that I knew that were sending N95 masks over to China to help them, and my thought was, my goodness, don't you think we might end up needing those? Yeah, I was like, it's going to come here is what was my thought. I remember talking to some friends weeks into it, like through February, people in the United States weren't really talking about it, and I guess that made it more scary because I thought, gosh, man, we're not even trying to prepare for this. I think that Americans believed that there was something just superior maybe about our DNA or something. I don't know, that this virus from China couldn't really affect us here, that we had a cleaner, and I'd hoped that. I thought, well, we got, the CDC and all this stuff, and they're going to get a handle on it, and we're going to stop this thing, and it's not going to make it over here. I hoped. That was my hope. My fear was that it wasn't. Again, I was pretty freaked out. Yeah, I talked to a few people about it, and hey, have you heard of the coronavirus? And nobody had really heard of it. Nobody knew what I was talking about, and I was like, man, they shut down the entire country of China. Like, seriously, like, that's a big deal, and I don't think that really registered with people. I remember, I was teaching classes at the local university, and I was kind of telling some of my students about it. And I remember warning one of my students specifically. I was like, yeah, that, and they didn't know about it. Nobody here really understood, like, it wasn't in the news like that. The news wasn't telling everybody, like, hey, man, they freaking shut down the whole country of China over this disease. And I remember telling a student of mine, I was telling her, I was really upset, guys. I don't know how to explain it. I was freaked out. I was pretty panicked. And I said, yeah, they got this coronavirus. It is going to come here, and I don't know if we are ready for it, is what I told her. And it still wasn't here. It probably was, but nobody knew about it. In hindsight, maybe it was, I don't know. But that's another story. I'm trying to explain where I was when it actually happened. As it happened, we were pretty oblivious. Most people in the United States were oblivious to it, to be quite frank. People like me weren't. There were other people like me that weren't, and we were actually trying to warn people. We were like the canaries in the coal mine. We were saying, hey, man, they got to do something about this. This is, we were looking at the numbers, and it was had quite a high percentage rate, a fatality rate. Now, a lot of people look at it too, they say, well, that's not that high of you have a 99% chance of surviving or whatever, but they're not really doing the math and really extrapolating it out and seeing that, even like a percentage of people dying, if there's 7 billion people, that's a lot of people, guys. That's a lot of people. And it's not just that, it has a long morbidity rate. You get sick for a long time. These are the numbers we were looking at. People like me, we were looking at, my goodness, this is going to be catastrophic if it really spreads. And the government didn't, they didn't really seem that panicked about it. They didn't seem that worried, which worried me, quite frankly. May I add, it was also an election year, which really complicated things, because you're thinking the president, who was Donald Trump at the time, probably didn't want to do a bunch of crazy stuff because he wants things to seem like they're really good. On the other side, you have the Democrats, who probably want to make everything seem like it's dire and hopeless and horrible so that they can get their person in there. So you got the two sort of competing agendas, really. Now, politically, where am I at politically is I don't really like political parties. I think they're bad for the country or for democracy. That's a different story that we will talk about on a different day. But so I'm, I wouldn't say I'm apolitical, but I do not like the partisan nonsense, and I was really worried about that, and so yeah, I remember telling one of my daughter's classmates' father at the playground, like, "Hey, you heard of this coronavirus?" And he was like, "No, no, I never heard of that." And I was explaining it to him, and her name was Brianna, by the way. In case my daughter's watching that, I don't know if she'll remember that, but it was a special friend that my daughter had made, and she'll never see her again now, But heck, we didn't know that at the time. We had no idea. Drinking tea here. Get a little tea down. But yeah, so I think 2 weeks after I talked to him about that, and I told him, I said, yeah, make sure you go and stock up, buy a few extra things. I was letting him know, like, get ready for this. And by the way, if anyone remembers back on a lot of the things that went short, I am partially to blame because I was one of the people who started panic buying early before a lot of you people probably were even aware that you needed to do that. But anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, gosh, I think it was March that they actually shut the schools down. And I kind of, I saw it coming. I was just waiting a matter of time for it to happen. And, it's kind of a big shock to a lot of people. People were very upset about it, and you kind of had two factions of people again. You have people that were like, we should just keep things open and, don't fear the virus and just keep on, going. And then, you had the other people that were like, shut it all down and, stuff like that. And they started issuing mask mandates and stuff. Now, at the time, originally, what they were saying, the big phrase was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We're going to, meaning, the hospitalizations. If we could get it down to a manageable level, that's what we needed to do, and then we could get back to normal. But they basically shut down the United States in March. They shut down, air travel shut down. The cruise lines had shut down by then. That's where the big outbreaks actually started, by the way, in the United States, relative to the United States, where a couple of cruise liners where many passengers got sick, and I think a few of them definitely died. And so that's kind of where it began in relationship to the United States, and then it really started spreading here throughout, California, New York got hit really hard, and then it just became a partisan mess, and that was horrible. And I saw it happen with my own eyes, and I, telling my wife this, we could have worn masks. That might have helped a lot, but they politicized that, and it's got like, just, it just got to the point in 2020 like nothing I've ever seen, where Americans were just divided against each other on all sorts of issues: black versus white, right versus left, red versus blue, mask versus no mask, and just people were just really divided against one another. It seemed like everywhere you go, everybody had a reason to hate each other. And mostly this is happening on the internet because people are at home. They're working from home. They're not supposed to be around each other. Social distance was the name of the game. You're supposed to stay 6 feet away from each other. There were a lot of confusing things about it. A lot of the small businesses were shut down. Walmart and Lowe's and the big box type places were allowed to stay open as essential businesses. Those people were the only people working, were the grocery clerks and some people at restaurants. If you wanted to go to a restaurant, you had to order delivery. DoorDash, things like that became really huge because of it, and it was quite the scene. I'll never forget, my dad told me, and he was right, I think, in many ways. He had some wisdom. He told me when it all first began, he said, there's going to be some businesses that are going to go out of business that shouldn't because of this, and there's going to be some businesses that make it that wouldn't have because of this, and I think he was really, that was quite a wise thing, It just changed the whole game. And man, being an election year, of course, that's just going to get everybody panicked. Like, oh, they're just doing this to get rid of Trump, was kind of the big theory, at the time. And he was a little bit more, I didn't like the way he handled it a lot. He didn't seem that serious. It seemed like he could have told people to wear masks, But, that's my opinion. That is my opinion. He didn't really do that. I thought they could have cracked down on a lot of things really quickly, early, to really get it under control. They didn't really do that. He didn't really take command of the states the way he should have. Partly, I think, was because of the political issues. As soon as he said, well, I gotta, the media, would have skewered him and been like, oh, this guy's a tyrant, let the governors do it. So he ended up turning everything over to the governors. The governors, they were short, by the way. My wife works in the medical industry, so they needed, drugs, ventilators, all types of supplies, masks to protect the healthcare workers. They didn't have enough of any of these things. By the way, China shut down, who is basically manufacturing everything for the world because somebody thought that would be a bright idea to send all of our manufacturing overseas. So you can't get supplies, and by the way, everybody in the whole world needs all the same stuff. And you find out real quickly that it's actually hard to freaking produce things like that for everybody. It's hard to produce enough masks for everybody in the world, enough toilet paper, So yeah, everything goes into panic in about a 2-week period. People buy up all the toilet paper, paper towels, cleaners, disinfectants, masks, rice, any type of dried goods, and ammunition, guns. Oh boy, you can't find ammo, you can't find guns. People buy them like crazy. Everybody's buying guns, preparing for whatever is going to happen, right? So, and I'm just talking about the spring. The year hadn't even really got cooking yet. I'm going to kind of look at my notes here. But, I get to the point where, I was like, man, I'll never be able to look at a lot of people the same again because people were just unwilling, it seemed like, to do anything to inconvenience themselves that would help out their fellow American. And that's going to piss a lot of people off, me saying this, if you somehow got here and you're not related to me. But that's definitely really, really something that I felt at the time. And so, my wife had floated the idea in the early days when it first started that we just get sick on purpose because they would be able to treat us. They hadn't quite run out of supplies yet. And she kind of saw that, hey, man, if you get sick later on, they're not going to have enough drugs to treat you. If you're going to get sick with this thing, get sick with it early. Now, not everybody that got sick, needed to even be hospitalized. I might have actually have had it. I remember, at that time, there was actually the school I worked at canceled all their, foreign study abroad visas or whatever. So those people came back home, and I had a new girl in one of my classes, and she said, oh yeah, I'm in your class now. They canceled my study abroad program. I said, oh yeah, where are you coming from? And she said Wuhan, China. Oh my goodness. And a few days later, I got pretty sick. I don't know what I had. I never got tested. For a few reasons. Wife was afraid if I got tested, they would quarantine her and me, and she wouldn't be able to go to work at the hospital. So that's kind of where that whole thing was, and that's sort of where everything started. Yeah, pretty crazy. So that's kind of where everything, the way everything really, really started. And so I don't want to make these too long. I want them to kind of be, get my thoughts a little bit in order here. I'm not, really reading off a script or anything. So that's kind of how it was. Now the great toilet paper shortage was, quite the amazing thing, and that was frustrating for a lot of reasons. Now, I had stocked up on a lot of this stuff and actually never ran out. But there were people that didn't have toilet paper, people that didn't have paper towels, that were having to come up with alternative methods. And, what are those? Gosh darn it. I don't know why I can't think of what they're called. The little duvets or, that people use in France or whatnot to clean their backside. Those became really popular as an alternative to toilet paper, which you could not get. And the fact that we seemed incapable fixing something as trivial as a toilet paper supply issue was evidence to me that we were in real trouble. I mean, it wasn't actually a toilet paper shortage yet. You know, they couldn't explain why manufacturers weren't able to meet demand, why they, just make more, right? I mean, I guess it's easy to overthink that. I think what it turned out to be was that our economy had gotten to the point where everything would be delivered just in time. Like it wasn't this deal where there'd be a big warehouse full of toilet paper and you just go get more. It's like they were literally making stuff at a certain rate so that it would be efficient, so that it would always arrive just in time. The stores needed more. And it just was not prepared for a surge in buying like that. It wasn't just toilet paper, like I say, it was a lot of things. Some things have never recovered. Ammunition has never recovered. I'm talking to you at over a year later, and that is still kind of hard to get because people just buy it all the time. Yeah, there were a whole lot of crazy things going on with the hospital, and like I say, some experiences that I'm hearing firsthand. A lot of people didn't believe there even was a virus, that it wasn't even a real thing. I didn't have that luxury. Having the wife and you're my kids, your mom, working in the hospital. She was working very, very hard. I remember, one of the things she told me early is they had to remove a 20-week old baby from a 25-year-old mother who was in ICU with COVID-19. That was probably the most serious things that happened. The baby was fine. The baby was fine. The mother, unfortunately passed away, but the baby was fine. Just premature, but I think they had a good outcome. The baby didn't have COVID, and thank God, the disease did not affect the children for some reason, for some miracle. COVID-19, that variant anyway, wasn't really affecting the little ones or even the older kids. It didn't affect young people so much as it did older people or people with some type of underlying conditions. I think that mother had diabetes or something like that. So everybody's just kind of sitting at home, scrolling social media, being angry at people all over the world that they've never met over a situation that, none of us really understood. And, is just people just arguing over all kinds of stuff. And, I was angry about the whole situation too. Felt like the media kind of helped fuel a lot of it. They seemed like, they weren't really trying to bring anyone together. If anything, they were trying to divide people, and a lot of gaslighting. I felt like, like with the whole 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and that went on indefinitely, of course. And it kind of felt like the military in a way. I remember being in boot camp. Well, it felt like basic training where, they would tell you to do a task, and that was actually an impossible task that you were never going to succeed, and then they would, you didn't do this good enough, and now you got to get punished. It's kind of what it felt like. But anyway, that's just my opinion. The daughter didn't have a birthday party, really. You couldn't have birthday parties or anything. I put a little sign out in the yard that said honk, we can't have a party. And people honked. It was kind of cool. It was really kind of harmful for my daughter, for Kaya, because she's shy, a little bit antisocial, and she was just starting to really get her confidence and get out of that, and really starting to come into her own, and just be a little more social, I suppose. And we did take her out to a restaurant for her birthday. The restaurants had kind of opened at like a very small capacity, like 25%, and we actually took her out to a place, and it was demonstrably fine. Actually, everyone was wearing masks. You had to wear a mask when you sit down. Couldn't take it off till you took a drink or ate food. What sense does that make? I don't know. A lot of it didn't make any sense, to be quite honest. Were the masks even effective? I believe they were to a point. Or would be to a point, and if it would help a little bit, then you might as well wear them. Other people did not believe that, and people have their opinions. I'm not telling anybody what to really to believe. And the reason why I didn't make this is I felt like there was enough people giving updates and stuff at the time. Although, here I am now. And we'll talk about that too. But and so it went a long time before, I started to kind of, not really talk too much about it. But, by the summertime, cases actually started to go down, so it kind of got a little bit better. I say a little bit, but it was a little bit better. I ended up going to the Las Vegas Strip and staying at the Palazzo for my birthday. They opened the casinos up again. There was like 25-50%. It almost felt like we were doing something we weren't supposed to be doing. All right, so to continue on, yes, we had stayed down on the Strip for my birthday, and that was kind of fun. That was a unique experience, one I'll never forget. I'll put a picture on here. We had to wear a mask most of the time. Sometimes we didn't have to. In a restaurant, if you were eating or something, you didn't have to. But, it almost felt like we were, again, doing something that we weren't supposed to. So, it was definitely interesting. There weren't very many people on the Strip, hardly anybody at all. But, numbers kind of started to go down. They went down. The school year got to going again, and, they weren't going to open the schools. Now, all this, again, I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. So they had early on, I had gone remote with all my students at the university. Because I was ready for it. I kind of knew they were going to shut down everything, and so I was prepared for it before everybody else. So the neat thing is I actually did not miss a single day of class time. We weren't physically in the class, but I told my students, I emailed them all, and I said, we're not going to miss anything. We're going to be on, Zoom by such and such, and I'm going to be there, and we're going to keep on chugging along. To which some of my students thanked me later. And I felt like I had a certain insight into it. I don't know what you'd call it. I'd been watching China, and I was like, psh. Listen to me, students. You need to prepare yourselves mentally for the fact that this is not going to go away soon. This is going to be a long-term thing. It's going to last a while. That next school year is probably not going to be normal. Things are going to be messed up for a long time, and hopefully, in a year or two, they'll come up with a vaccine or treatment that will make this thing kind of go away. They were saying at the time that it would take them at least 2 years to develop an effective vaccine. And, we'll talk about that later too, but that's what they were saying. The cases did kind of start going down in places. There was a lot of messed up stuff happening, though. There were governors of like New York, Nevada, where they were putting, COVID positive patients back in the nursing homes. Again, the media was just they were being completely partisan. If you were, a Democrat, and it was a, liberal station, they would, make it seem like you were doing awesome. If you were a Republican, they would make it seem like you were doing horrible. None of that is good. I mean, if we're trying to all do something, I felt like we needed to all mobilize together as, ideally, and try to work together for the common good of our country. But that did not happen. And that really surprised me and hurt me. I thought, we're going to come together and we're going to do this, and but that's not what happened. The politicians refused to work together. People just bashed heads, fueled a lot by the media. You see I'm real down on them. I blame them. And, some of you watching this probably, if someone else is watching this, they would probably put me in, like, oh, he must be one of those anti-media guys, one of those, like a populist or something. I don't know. But people do that. There's nothing I can do about that. That's just my opinion. I'm an individual. I have my own unique opinions. I am who I am. And that's what it is. So, had this guy George Floyd get murdered by a cop. That starts all kinds of riots. Again, a lot of that fueled by the media. So people are not supposed to be around each other. And you got the media, basically cheerleading for these, giant protests and riots. There was plenty of riots. I mean, people, I don't know how history would look back on it, but if they're being honest, there was a lot of rioting and things going on. There were also a lot of peaceful protests, don't get me wrong, but, that had to have increased the amount of people being sick. It's an election year, so this Trump guy is holding rallies all over the country. He doesn't care that there's a, the Trump and his crew were kind of like, there's nothing to be afraid of. Just go ahead and, don't even worry about it. Don't even wear a mask. You don't need anything. Basically it's all, I don't know what exactly a lot of those people believe, but they weren't really, they weren't helping. So the left and the right were not, helpful at all. I think the left likes to believe they were in the right, but they were not. I'm sure the right wants to believe they were also in the right. Well, they weren't either. Neither side was right. I think both sides really hurt any effort to mitigate this virus, and in fact just polarized people against each other. You couldn't have come up with a better plan to really divide a nation. And maybe that happened all over the world. It probably did. It probably did. But that didn't help. That didn't help at all. But they did close down school. They did not open school back up. At the university, they did. They did under, stipulations, small class sizes. I think we were at about 20%. The campus of this college was completely dead, freakishly so. There wasn't anybody on campus during fall semester when it would be just packed with people. It was a ghost town. But I still taught in-person classes, ironically, and didn't have a lot of students, but I was there, which was its own thing. We had to wear a mask, which made it difficult, and it just felt kind of eerie. But I was proud to do it and to be there for them. And we didn't quite make it all the way through. I think by November, maybe late October, they kind of, I think it was about November. It seemed like it was right before Thanksgiving. Joshua, our oldest son, came home from his college, and he was doing remote learning by then as well. So, the kids were not in person school at all. They were doing all remote, which was horrible. It was horrible. I started out trying to really be like this is going to be great, and to really be kind of a, really. But it wasn't great. My daughter didn't like it. Her and I fought so badly over it that I just decided, I am not going to make a big deal out of it anymore. It's not worth it. It's not worth, me really making her hate me. I didn't handle it well. That's the truth. I didn't handle it well. I didn't know how to handle it. I had a hard time, dealing with it, dealing with being, homeschooling her essentially. She didn't want to be on camera on those Zoom calls, so there was that. And so a lot of times I would just actually take her, and we would go. Restaurants were open, not fully, but like 50%. No one was going anyway, and which I actually kind of liked. You could go places and no one would be there, But we'd go and wear a mask and take plenty of disinfectant. But I would take her to this restaurant called Red Robin. And we would have like hamburgers and just that would be our kind of escape. And man, we must have went there 50 times. We went there so much, I'll never forget. I mean, how could I? We went there so often, and we just did have to get out and it'd make her feel a little better, and it made me feel a little better to see her happy. I was trying to take her to the park and stuff. Sometimes she'd resist that, and she just didn't understand. I'm like, the thing is that I understood, like, if people stay inside their houses all enclosed in, they're not getting all the activity they should be getting, which is going to lead to health problems down the road, of course. And if you're a developing young person, you need to, develop strong muscles, tendons, and bones. And if you're not getting that physical activity, that's a crucial time in your development not to get that. So I tried to mitigate that, and she just, we bumped heads on everything with that, and it was just horrible. It was horrible. But we survived it. We made it through. Cases went down mostly, and things were kind of looking up. But, we kind of knew, the wife and I knew what was going to happen, that, the cases were going to spike again in the winter. And I think people kind of did let their guard down, to be honest, a little bit. Around October, September-ish, people kind of let their guards down. They came back with a vengeance, and, at one point we were losing close to like 3,000 people in this country a day. It was pretty pretty bad if you think about it. A lot of people think they lied about the numbers. I'm gonna tell you this: at the wife's hospital, a lot of people were dying. I mean, they just were. It wasn't the flu. It wasn't some. It was something they had never seen before. The healthcare workers were taxed. They were really, and it was accelerating. It was gonna get worse. They were reusing masks and all types of stuff. So it was a really bad deal as far. It really was. There really were. I know some people don't believe that. I don't know. People watching this now, but at the time, people didn't believe that people were really sick. They thought this was all just a bunch of made up baloney. There were people taking cameras into hospitals and they'd be empty. And the thing was, people didn't understand. The hospitals were empty in large part because if you really wanted to see the sick people, you had to go to ICU. That's where they were. Everybody else, they were keeping them out of the hospital so they wouldn't get sick. They weren't. You couldn't go to you couldn't have voluntary surgery. Is that the right? The optional type of surgery, the type of surgery that like if you need an ACL repair, they weren't doing that. A lot of heart surgeries, they weren't doing that. I know that because my dad needed like a stent or something at the time, and they delayed it because they could keep treating it with medicine, so he didn't get one. In fact, I was doing physical therapy in the early days of the virus. Kind of backtracking a little bit back to April really, and I was like their only patient, and they treated me like a VIP guest because like I just happened to have a doctor's order for physical therapy before everything went kablooey, and I'd already had surgery. I was they didn't need surgery. It was something they were treating my shoulder actually, and so yeah, they all knew me and treated me real good. They were glad to have a patient. I was one of the only ones. So that's why the hospitals were kind of empty at the time. Anybody that may have saw that. I'm trying to think of what else we could really talk about. Of course the whole election thing just got worse and worse and worse. Joe Biden looked like he had no chance of getting elected. Didn't have a chance in hell. And then all of a sudden all the other Democrats kind of coalesced behind him. Like he was kind of the chosen one or whatever, and he ended up winning the presidency or whatever, and so he's the president now at this time. So yeah, the year kind of continues on. We had the election. Biden wins or whatever, and people are upset about that. Donald Trump doesn't want to concede. Just a crazy deal. Of course, it ended up leading to a Capitol riot and everything else. All the while, the cases of COVID are going up and up. Good news is they had a vaccine, which they said they would not be able to have one that quickly. The amazing thing is, it turns out the vaccine was like, they said create it in February of 2020. So right after they found out about the coronavirus, they developed a vaccine. Isn't that amazing? So much has really changed. We'll get into that later. My attitudes about a whole lot of things have changed. Originally, just to let you know, I did support Black Lives Matter movement. I really didn't want Trump to be, I thought he had done a horrible job, frankly, with a lot of things. Some of the stuff he said and whatever just didn't make sense. I'm not, one of these people that worship this guy by any means of the imagination. I was very, very disappointed in the way that he had handled everything. That, I thought, man, he handled it this badly. You can't re-elect him if he, I knew about the dang virus, and it seems like, I don't know, it seems like they just let that one get by. But, that is my opinion, and other people have, other opinions, so we won't get too deep into that. But vaccines seem to really, really work. Cases started going down pretty quickly. I got my vaccine, before most people. Wife got hers before mine because she's a healthcare worker, but because I was teaching in person, I got mine in January of 2021. So I was one of the early people to get the dang thing, and I felt pretty optimistic about it. And we were gonna, things reopened, basically. I started going to the gym again, stopped wearing the mask, and things were pretty much normal. School had actually reopened a year after it closed. In March of 2021, my daughter was able to go back. She had to wear a mask, and there weren't very many people at this, in her class, actually. Out of 24 people that started the school year that year, she's in second grade by now. After those 24 people, there are 8 kids that actually went to in-person learning and they had to wear masks. But I'd rather her be in person. She made a lot of friends and had a good time in those last couple of months and weeks in school. But yeah, they ended up having a summer school, which I put her in that. Even fewer people went to that, and by then, people weren't even wearing masks. People felt pretty comfortable in June not wearing masks. That we had pretty much. We were pretty much over the hill. We'd pretty much beaten the thing. And, I felt really optimistic. We had a new president. I was thinking, this guy will hopefully do things, the way they're supposed to be run or whatever, and if nothing else, the media won't constantly work against him. And, man, was I wrong about a lot of that. And we'll talk about that in some more videos. I've got a lot to talk about, and we'll see you in those. And kids, I love you if you're watching this. And anyway, if aliens or whatever are watching this, or people from the future, hope you enjoy. Anyway, see you in the next one.